when Deanna found out that we had bought them stuff, they had a big meeting, and she confronted them and was demanding the stuff back that we had bought them.
So what, they just didn't want to spend the money on the fuel or something? Right. They were fine.
Yeah.
Wow, so they couldn't run to the gas station and get some fuel, even to put on a show for the visitors.
That's cool.
Like, you would think, that they would at least do that.
They were wanting gift cards to put up a privacy.
They were going to put up a fence around the whole thing, around their privacy fence. I'm like, that's going to cost big bucks.
Yeah.
That's a nice sized chunk of land they were given there. That would be a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, they told us that it was donated to them. It was a tax write-off from the guy that donated the land to them.
That the land was donated to them?
Yeah, they told us
that's
that
not true.
Donated by a guy for a tax write-off.
Well,
but I don't know about in North Carolina, but I know in Indiana that you cannot use buying property as a tax write-off.
Even simpler than that, she would have to be a 501c3 for it to be a tax write-off, and she hasn't been one since 2017.
Yeah.
It was revoked for not filing for 3 years in a row. Yeah, I'll send you the link to it.
Yeah.
It's easy to find. Like, it's unreal. That, God, that's terrible. If she's actually telling him it's a tax write-off, that'll get her in some trouble, actually.
Yeah, that could get the
He tries to write that off.
That could get the landowner in trouble.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. It's if he, writes that off on his taxes, they go check and see if this is a valid charity. It's not a 501c3, a nonprofit, so it's an invalid write-off.
He could get in trouble.
Yeah, so they come to him and say, okay, who is this woman that told you she was a charity?
Right.
And that's the thing. She always says, she stresses online that she is a 501 or not a 501c3, but several times she has slipped up and said she was, and it was particularly during this time, either when you guys were there, like right before, when she was talking about construction materials and stuff. So in other words, expensive stuff. So it was, whatever she could get for that.
And there's people spraying some really nice stuff, and I don't know. They brought campers, and there was a new wash machine, and a dryer, and a refrigerator.
They got a washing machine and a dryer?
Yes.
Yeah, but they don't have any way of washing
They
their
can't
clothes.
wash their clothes.
That's in her house now.
To have, I've heard 2 different things. I've heard 7 and I've heard 8.
Yeah.
8 or 7 different outfits and 2 pairs of shoes or boots in their tent.
Yeah, the resident told us the same thing.
And they weren't allowed. I witnessed myself. It threw up a red flag to me because I'm thinking a lot of people donate stuff for these people. And I witnessed her telling one of the ladies in the tent, she asked her, how did you get 2 sets of something she was eating with or eating on or something, and utensils or pots and paint, something. And I thought, well, how strange. Like, people donate this stuff and she's getting on to her because she has, how did you get that?
Yeah, I think it was plastic utensils.
And I was like, because we were also told that all this stuff donated, like they couldn't have anything because they were told that it was for other people that come in after them. But they just loaded up stuff, donations after donations, and took to a warehouse. But they couldn't have, they just had that one storage trailer there that had, some stuff in it. But I know they were very particular about how much or what they could get out of that storage trailer.
Were they allowed to wash clothes in any way when you were there?
No, they did not. As a matter of fact, no, they didn't. And it was, from what we were hearing from people, it was being a long time before, that girl that had this outfit on. She had it on all 3 days we were there. And I know that they don't. We also found out that because we just kind of started asking questions, and we said, when we first got in contact with her, the very first time we spoke to Deanna, she gave us the story, and we, how terrible, these people can't even have showers. And so that's why we were like, we're going to get that bathhouse set up so they can take showers,
Yeah.
We found out because we later asked, did, before we came, were you taken to a hotel room to get a shower? And they said, no, ma'am.
Oh. So pretty much nothing that was being told was actually happening. That's just the way it feels.
While we were there, the last day we were there, we got the land. We got a bunch of roots and stuff taken up, and got it all cleared. And my husband leveled it to move their tents down the hill to set them up in a different spot. They were at level spots, so they were setting tents up. And they all got in a big circle around the tent, and they were praying. And we thought, well, that was neat,
Yeah.
And my husband even videoed it. He's got it on his phone videoed. But we found out later that after we left, they set up like 2 or 3 tents there. And then we ended up leaving, and they were setting up the rest. I guess after we left, they never prayed around any more tents.
No.
Oh, wow.
It was all for show while we were there, and they said they never did. They never prayed on any of the other tents when they were set up.
Yeah.
They just said, "Were you guys there when we were re-putting up the tents and we all got around the tent and was praying?" And we said, "Yeah." I said, "As a matter of fact, my husband videoed it." And she said that was all for show because she said that was the only time that was ever done. She said, and we were like, "Oh, really?"
So,
And then the one guy I had a connection with, they moved him to, and I guess they put the tent up over a roof, and it was in the bottom of the floor of the tent. And he told Ronnie, he said, "Hey, we need to pick this tent up and move it. There's a root underneath of it, and it's just a pain, And they said, "No, we're not moving this tent. You just have to deal with it."
Oh, wow.
my God.
They would even pick it up and get that root out from underneath the floor of that tent.
Because they don't even have air mattresses or nothing in them tents, right? It's just sleeping bags.
Yeah, they got some air mattresses.
Okay.
Use them.
Yeah.
Well, but anyway, going back to the morning that we left, and so we leave knowing that they're upset, and we're upset because they're getting in trouble because they talk to us, and we're thinking how terrible. We go to help them to hear their stories. We're told we're not allowed to. Then we leave knowing they're going to get kicked out because they talked to us, and they accepted things that we went and bought them that they didn't even ask us for, that we wanted to do it. So we're driving home, and I get a text message from one of the residents, and I'm like, "Oh, it's so, this person." And I said, "How did she get my number?" Because I didn't give my number to anybody. The other girls had. I wasn't there when they were told. I was at another part where we were tearing down the mobile home. And so I get a message, and I'm like, "How did she get my phone number?" Because I never gave any of them my phone number. And then one of the male residents texted me, and they were just thanking me that she was saying that she was sorry she didn't get to say goodbye to me when we left, when the other ladies came down to her tent, and prayed with her and stuff. She said she was sorry she didn't get to see me and say goodbye. And she said, "Would you please give my number to the other ladies?" And I said I would do that. And then I get a text message shortly after from one of the male residents there. saying he wanted to thank us for all that we did. They really appreciated everything. That he just wanted to say thanks again, and that I just left it. I said, it was a pleasure. It was nice meeting you and stuff. And so then we get home, and the next day I get a text message from Deanna saying, "Hey, Lisa, you guys had asked what you could do for this particular female resident. You had asked what you could do for her. We have a camper for her to transition her out. Camper for her would be willing to pay her $700 a month rent at the campground." And I'm thinking, well, for this lady, because we all loved her, and we were like, yes, we will do that to help her out, but we're like, I need to get with the rest of the group, make sure that they're on board with it, see what they say, and I'll get back with you. Well, we all were like, she doesn't have a job. How is she going to pay for the next month's rent?
Right.
And so I asked her, I asked Deanna, I said, she doesn't have a job. And she said, well, there's a Dollar General within walking distance from the campground. She can get a job there. She said that a guy at the Dollar General told her he needed a cashier, and he said, send her in. And so we were led to believe that she was going to get a job at the Dollar General. So we said, okay, we will pay her rent. So our friend from our church that went up with us, he called the campground and gave the guy his credit card, and we paid for her a month's rent of the campground. And then we called Deanna and tell her, okay, her rent's paid, so you can get her camper moved over. And Deanna says, I will stock her up with food and paper supplies and cleaning supplies, and we'll get her moved over. I'll put her video on. And so the next day, I think it was the next day, or I don't know if it was the next day or 2 days, she puts her on. She's on her video on Facebook where she's standing there with this lady with her keys and her title to her camper. So yay, she's got a title camper. She's there for a month. Now she can get a job and go on with her life. But the one thing with this lady, one of the reasons that she was there, she was beat half to death. She was running for her life. And Deanna, knowing that this woman was running, from the man that had beaten her, that she went to get a restraining order against, she put her out on Facebook in front of the world.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know this, but at the beginning, when they were looking for a place to set up Hope Village, I believe that was the first place she ever announced it would be, but that fell through, so they went to the church in Boiling Springs. So that's pretty foul, that it's almost like putting a GPS on her, in my opinion. But,
right, like showing the world, here's a map.
But
then we went back to, way back to her post, which this resident went there on January the 17th. So if you go back to the January videos on her Facebook, she is actually on there videoing her talking to this resident who escaped a guy beating her to death, that was beaten and bruised. As this woman is talking to Deanna on the phone, she's like, where are you? I will come and get you. Just if you tell me where you're at, I'll come and get you right now. And I will take you to court tomorrow to file papers or whatever. She's, telling the world on her Facebook page that this person, I'll come and get you. And then she puts her on getting in her camper. Anybody,
And even prior to that, when she was first talking to her, in January, everyone knew where Hope Village was. So she's saying, I'll come get you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
you're
We
telling
went
her she can
Say that you're, helping people and stuff, but you knowingly put them on your Facebook in front of the whole world to see
as a
where
prop.
you're at, and then you get a camper. It didn't actually say where she was going, but the camper was at Hope Village when she got it.
Yeah.
And you're putting her life at risk. And then we later find out, okay, so moving on from that, she gets her title, her keys to her camper. And we think all this good. Until the next day, our friend that went on the trip with us she's staying connected with this lady. And the lady is upset. She's crying because she doesn't want to seem ungrateful because she was living in a tent and she was hiding, trying to heal from being beaten. And she didn't want to be ungrateful because this lady has the most caring heart of anybody I've ever met.
Yeah.
And she said, but I can't stay in that camper because we found out that the campground owner only allows newer campers, a certain year and at his campground because he doesn't want to have his campground trashy. And he was upset because there was such a stench in the trailer because it had black mold in it. And it was musty, smelling, and she said it had such a terrible stench that she couldn't even stay in it. And when they put the slide out on the camper, the floor was rotted out in it.
Oh.
The hot water heater didn't work. The blinds were broken. This campground owner told us everything that was wrong, and he ended up calling Deanna and telling her that she could not live in that camper. They were going to have to get her a different camper. We didn't know this because the last thing we saw on Facebook was that she had a camper with a title and keys. But then through connecting with our friend who was on the trip, we find out that it gets switched out, but she doesn't get the title and keys to this other camper.
Oh, so no title and keys at all.
Yeah,
then.
no title and keys. And she was told that they would have to get it and bring it to her. And then we find out because she had been up, put her application in at the Dollar General. She hadn't gotten a job. And so she's living in a camper. She put on Facebook that she has a camper with title and keys. But from Deanna, we never heard otherwise. We never heard that she got a different camper. We just thought everything was good.
Mm-hmm.
And had not had contact because this woman had gotten my phone number and I gave it to the other ladies. And she was staying in contact with them. And we find out that, does not have a title and keys to this camper. And then a couple weeks or so go by, she still doesn't have a title and keys. And we're like, okay. I ended up calling, I texted Deanna and I said, hey, Gary asked me to reach out to you guys because our church mission board is having a meeting and we need to get the receipt for the rock that we gave you part of the $800 for. We need to get a receipt so we can be accountable for the money that we took.
Yeah.
And I said also, our friend has been in contact with this lady that had been transitioned out into her camper. And we said, she hasn't gotten a job yet, so we're worried and we're wanting to try to move her because she's out in the middle of nowhere. She has a bicycle. She doesn't have a vehicle. The only place that she could get a job is at the Dollar General or a little quick stop. And so she has no way of getting a job anywhere else.
Yeah, there's nothing out there. We've been there, and it's
So she's out
unbelievably
basically in
desolate.
the middle of nowhere
Yeah.
with no vehicle except for a bicycle.
Hmm.
So you were like, we're going to try to move her someplace that she can be closer to find somewhere to get a job. So we need to get plates and insurance on her camper, but she doesn't have her title.
Yeah.
Would you be able to help us get those? Well, she called me. Instead of texting me, she calls me immediately and says, that is Anthony's camper. She said, Anthony, I'm waiting on Anthony for the title. And she kept saying Anthony, and I'm like, who is Anthony? And she said, Anthony, he's the guy that built our bathhouse and donated it.
Oh.
And so I'm like, okay, but so she then tells me that she's not at the village. She said, when I get back, I will get the receipt, for that rock, and I'll send it to you. And it never happened. You never did get the receipt for it because they didn't get the rock.
Yeah.
Because I've been there Monday and they don't have the rock they were supposed to get. And so anyway, she, we didn't get that. So we just decided, well, there's so many things that happened after that.
And there was no, like, the title situation. Did she say that she'd be able to get it, or did she just?
Yeah, she kept telling her that she's waiting on Anthony to get the title. It's Anthony's camper. She's waiting on him to get the title.
Hmm.
And so we thought, okay, we're just going to leave, the three of us women. Our husbands like, it sounds like time for a road trip for you girls to
That's
go
great.
to North Carolina. So
That's such a long trip.
we set out on Sunday after church and drove 10 hours. And we didn't tell anybody we were coming.